Hello, and welcome to another episode of Content Creators Unite, the show where we discuss all things content creation. So, if you want to learn how to grow your business using blogs, newsletters, ebooks, and more, you are in the right place. I'm your host, John Clements, and I'm really excited about my guest for today. Her name is Peg Fitzpatrick. She is a social media strategist, speaker, and author of The Art of Small Business Social Media. She has over 10 years of experience, and she's worked with top brands like Canva, Audi, and Motorola. As the former head of social strategy at Canva, Peg helped build their online presence from the ground up, and now she focuses on helping small business owners just like you develop effective social media strategies that drive real results. So, Peg, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's
I'm
always weird to hear an intro about yourself. It's always like, seems weird.
so okay, you did a great job listening to it. So I looked, as I mentioned before you hit the record button, you have a lot of bona fides. You really have put yourself in a very good position in the social media space. So could you just kind of give us the walkthrough of how did you start with social media strategies as your career, and how did you get to where you are today?
Ooh, there's a lot in between there because I've been doing this for a really long time. So I started out, I had done traditional marketing and I'd worked doing like emails and doing all different things. This is before any social media was around. So I had marketing experience. And my husband works for a German company and we were out to dinner and I was explaining all these new things that I saw that I thought would be a great way to market a business in the United States. So I started saying, there's Facebook pages and you can reach people and everybody's getting on there and talking to each other. This is before Facebook was a thing. So I was explaining something that it would be like a new platform that nobody heard of then. So then I was explaining like all these ideas, like how I would use it, what I would do. And I wasn't pitching. I was just like literally just coming up with marketing ideas, which is something that happens for me. I'm like, someone says, how could I do whatever? And then I start, my brain starts going. So like 6 months later, they said, hey, we want to hire you to do this product launch for us. And I didn't even have a long time to plan a product launch, but I said, sure. So I've been working for that company since I started in social media. That was 14 years ago. And for that, I did create a huge launch for the product using email marketing and capturing people's, email and then letting them know about this live event, which was at a trade show. And we got like 500 people came to our big product launch. So that was a very huge product launch for the industry that's very large. So then since then, I worked at the beginning just part-time for that company. So I did other things, and always while I was trying to figure out how to do things, I would test it on my own accounts. So I was kind of my own guinea pig. And I always say I accidentally built a social following because I was just learning how to do things. At the time, there was not books on how to do things and blogs on how to do things, and there wasn't podcasts on how to do things. So I basically started blogging too, just writing about my experiences and figuring out when I figured out how to do things, I would write about it on my blog. So I have like more than a decade of, how-tos for how to do things in all different aspects of social media. So, and then I just kept going and doing different things. I've been a speaker at all different kinds of events like Social Media Marketing World and Inbound by HubSpot and Alt Summit, like all different kinds of conferences and content creator kinds of things. So basically, I just kind of started at the beginning when everybody else was getting started, but I've actually been doing it live for a long time. And I've actually worked in social media every single day since I've been on social media. Usually people are on social media and they're talking about social media, but they're not actually getting paid to do it. They're really just managing their own accounts and saying, I'm working in social media, but it's not really the same. When you're paid by a company, you have to know how to do a lot more than just posting your own things. You have to create marketing strategies and content strategies and, all the reach goals set by other people.
So it
So that's
sounds
kind of the
like, yeah.
nutshell of it. I mean, that was kind of long, but it's a long
Yeah, no,
time to
no.
explain.
Yeah, that's a lot. It's 14 years to try to condense into like 2 minutes. I get it. So it sounds to me like, I mean, I just from talking with you for a couple of minutes, it feels like you kind of built to do this. And so it
Mm,
was that kind of that matching, right, of your personality and skill
Mhm.
set with this new thing. And so I think there's some timing and just, that natural ability that really helped you kind of get to the next level, which I think is so cool.
Well, I'm a former theater kid
There we
and,
go.
and
There
an
we go.
English major. So those things, and then I in a geography. I was like education, geography, and English were my majors in college. So I feel like I use all of those because I write all the time, and I've traveled all around the world, which is a huge bonus. I feel so grateful that I have done that during my career. Just paid work travel everywhere, which is amazing. Yeah, so it is kind of a good fit because I feel like there are like social media people, a lot of people who were in theater or some kind of performing because it's like being on camera. People are like, I can't do lip syncs. So I'm like, those are so I love lip syncs. I don't do a lot of them on my social medias because it doesn't always fit, but I have done some. And to me, it's just fun. It's
Oh
like
man.
so, theater stuff is fun to me.
I'm gonna go find some of your lip sync videos now. That's my
There's
goal.
probably only like 2. I think I've only done like 2 that are on TikTok. I really have not done a lot.
Nice. The other thing you said earlier that I think really helps in a career like this is you said you're an idea person. And
Mm,
I love idea people. I've got an idea person who anytime I've like, need to do a thing. How do I do the thing? I just ask
mm.
her and then I get like 10 ideas in like a minute. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
So that's so cool. You've been
When
able
your
to kind of
brain
like,
starts firing, you're like, "You know what you could do is," but the problem
that's
is you
right.
can't turn it off later. Like 2 days later, I'm still like, "And remember how we talked about that thing?" And then I'm like sending people. And
That's
I
okay.
also give unsolicited social media advice.
That's okay. But I'm the kind of guy, I need people to give ideas. I need those people in my life. So that's wonderful. So
Uh-huh.
let's talk for a minute. You're very excited and passionate about what you do, which is amazing. If you had to kind of convey that to someone else or to any listener, like what is the most exciting thing about what you do and about,
Mm.
social media and what do you wish everyone knew about it?
That's a good question. What do I wish everybody knew? That it doesn't have to be so overwhelming. I think it can be really overwhelming for people, especially your listeners want to be content creators. It can be overwhelming when you think you need to be everywhere and do everything. And it's really more important to get good at one thing. And, like if you want to be a podcaster, focus on your podcast and then use social media to help share your podcast, but you still have to focus and make your show the best thing. Like you're going to have some kind of hero content, whether it's a video or a blog post or a podcast. So think of that as like your hero content and then everything else kind of like to sprinkle out because social media can help all your things grow. But if you get overwhelmed by it and too many choices, there's so many choices for like different podcast hosting and different social media platform schedulers and tools to do this, and you can get really tied up in tools and it can you it's like busy work, right? You're like, I'm just going to test this tool and I'm working right now, and so then you're like, then 3 hours later you're like, where did all my time go? And it wasn't really productive. So you don't need to switch your tools all the time either. I feel like that's a thing that people just get so caught up in. And now of course AI is the hot buzzy buzzword, and there's a million AI tools, and it's like you don't need a million, you just need one that works, that you've learned how to use. So don't get overwhelmed by all the choices, but try to just make it work for what your goal is.
Yeah, I
Does that
love
make
that.
sense?
That's what I'm trying to do with this podcast. For example, I have a very small tech stack. I have a defined process. It's super efficient because I'm not a professional podcast editor, right? And
Right.
so I'm just trying to get the valuable content out to people. That's the goal.
Right.
So you mentioned a term, and I was hoping you could define it for us, just so we all know what it is. You said hero content. Can you explain just
Hmm.
kind of what that is?
So to me, the hero content is kind of like your main thing that you're creating because you can't constantly be creating like a big thing, a big thing, a big thing. So just say like once a week or whatever your cadence is. But I would say most podcasts are weekly. We'll use you for an example, John, for everything your podcast. So, you're going to create one podcast a week. I feel like some people do more, some people do less, but we'll just go with one is a really great cadence because there is a lot of work that goes into every single episode, right? You have to find the guest, you have to come up with questions, you have to, you know, you have to be on camera with someone, you have to research the person, and then you have to edit it, and then you're going to, do all the other things. So that to me is like your hero content. That is the really big thing that you're creating. then you can spend the rest of your week talking about that thing and breaking it down. So say you're done with a podcast and then you get the transcript for the podcast. We'll do a shorty cut way of doing it, and we'll use AI, we'll use Chat GPT to take your transcript and say, this is my guest, link to my website. This is the episode that we have. Here's the transcript. Please, this is my hero content for the week. Please create 20 social posts that I can use this week in my brand voice, and say that I want like YouTube title and description. I want Pinterest pin title and description. And then I want like some quotes from the guests that I could use with a link to it. And then have it do its work on it. And then you want to make sure, obviously, you've done some work. AI only works really well if you've already got your brand well defined in there. But
Amen. Thank you for saying that.
yeah, I was I kind of skipped past that. But I mean, if you don't do that, if you don't do all those steps, you will get very generic content. So I've done a lot of work, and maybe you have too, John, just creating your brand voice and like the style that you want your podcast to sound. Your Content Creators Unite, right? That's your brand. That's your name of your podcast. So you can come up with some phrases. Like you could work with AI to come up with a couple phrases that really will hit your target audience. You want to tell it, obviously your title tells you, right, who's going to listen to it. So, content creators and like how you can solve their pain points, and then have it just work backwards on that. So you have your brand defined. But once you have your brand defined, you should be able to create a prompt that will give you everything that you need for the week after that. So you could put that in there, have it create all the stuff. And then you still have to do a lot of work after that. It seems like that's a quote unquote shortcut, and it's faster than writing it all out, but you still have to distribute it, because then you would be uploading it to YouTube, and then you would be creating like scheduling out LinkedIn posts with a link to it. And then, I don't know if anybody's on Twitter anymore. I still call it Twitter, even though it's technically X, but I am like bucking it because I hate that name. You could create some really, conversational posts for like Threads. Are you on Threads?
I'm not on Threads. No.
I love Threads because it's kind of where the conversation's happening right now. So you could have it create some like conversational threads or questions that could start conversation. So there's just a lot of ways that you can do it. So the hero content is the one really big thing that you create, and then it's your content for longer because you're going to break it into a bunch of pieces and like sprinkle it around.
Nice. I love that. Thank you for explaining that. I hear marketing terms all the time, and no one ever stops to define them. So it's important to have these conversations, right? Because not everyone knows what that term means. And so if we can just break it down into simple English like you did, it's wonderful, because now I've learned something. Now I can use that.
Oh, good. Well, I hope somebody else learned from it too. But it is a bigger term, and that is the problem. There's a lot of slang and acronyms and all of that. I always do try to break things down to make it easy for people without you don't want to make it boring either. Like the AI thing, I did go back to explain it because I think if people haven't used it and they just go jump in, they never stop to do the brand building piece, then it will be a mistake. So
yeah, and I'm really glad you mentioned that too, because I was going to say it if you didn't, right? Like you have to have a voice first before you can use that tool to help you with your voice.
Yeah. So you could use it to help define your brand voice. That's another way that you could use it, is just to say, I'm a brand new podcast. This is my title, and I think these are the people that I want to reach. And what should my brand voice be taking, because it's really a different brand voice than you. You could have a personal brand and your podcast could be a separate thing. So, that's just, break down who the podcast is, who you want to reach, and, what kind of language is the best to use to reach them.
Yeah. So I actually want to dig in on that just a little bit, because that gets to my next question, which is, when you post a piece of content, whether it's Pinterest or LinkedIn or Threads, how do you actually define what success looks like for you?
So, there are vanity metrics and numbers, but engagement is the biggest piece to me that matters now. algorithms have shut it down so hard that everybody who follows you doesn't see everything that you post. So you're just hoping to engage with people and have conversations. So for me, I really measure things through engagement, and I go back through and kind of look at what I posted in the past week to see, did this take off? Did this take, sometimes you create something that you think is great, but it doesn't do very well. So maybe that format isn't a good idea. So I try to just review things. I'm not somebody who, once a week or once a month writes down all my numbers and analyzes it all. And there's just too much content and too much time. I really kind of do it more on the fly. Blog analytics through Google Analytics, I used to really heavily monitor because blogging was my hero content every
Mhm.
week, but Google even shut that down as much. It used to be, back in the days when blogs got shared a ton, I could post something and have 1,000 shares on it, not even just views, but people sharing it on that first day of publication. And now social sharing just isn't as big for things. Like, it's just, if you put links and stuff, it doesn't always get, it gets
Yeah.
downplayed in the algorithms. So everything is a lot harder now, believe it or not.
I 100% believe you. Someone asked me the other day when I was a guest on a podcast, and they said, now that you've been doing what you do for a while, is it easier to get clients? And I said, no, it's never easy.
No, no, it just isn't. Like, there's so many, when you Google something now, so many options come up. And even at the top of that, Google has a little snippet, not even the
Hmm.
snippet anymore. They have an AI, breakdown of everything on the page. It's so hard now to even get what you want out there, right?
I know. So I want to actually dig in that as well, because this speaks really to SEO. So
Hmm.
I'm curious, as a professional marketer, like how important is SEO in your strategy? And is it like just one piece of the pie, or is it important, or do you not even care? Like, where does SEO fit in nowadays?
I do care. I think
Okay.
everybody should care because, focusing on keywords and not just hashtags, but keywords in your content is the biggest thing that I do for SEO. So if I have that hero content, or if it's just my blog or it's my book, I keep the keywords in mind. If I'm writing about my book, I use small business and social media in the text. On the website, is more like doing a video or a podcast where you have the description and then you're using them in there too. So I've always been a person who writes my content for people, not for search engines, but I'm also aware that search engines are important. So I always use keywords for things in the title, the descriptions, and then in the content.
Do you use a tool to research keywords, or do you just kind of do it in a more organic fashion?
Well, I usually have my idea off the top. Usually, when I'm creating, well, if I'm writing something, I'll use a blog post as an example. When I'm writing a blog post, I usually have the title before I start because I know what I want to write about and I nail the title down. And then I just try to, and then I use Yoast on the back end of my
Hmm.
blog, which is a
Yeah.
really great SEO tool. And that just kind of, I tell it this is the keyword, and then it analyzes things to make sure that you have enough keywords in there, and it's very helpful. So I don't have to focus on it that much because I have that tool that helps me. It'll tell me if I used it too much, which is never, but then it tells me to put it in a couple more places. That so I don't focus on it when I'm writing like that keyword as much, but I'm always focused on the topic. And then I just go through and I update to add it in like headings and in the text and subheadings and in the meta description. And meta descriptions are so hard to write because you want them to be great. I actually do use AI for that a lot. This is my title, and then, this is my keyword. Please write me a meta description. And then I use the same kind of tools to do the descriptions, like for Pinterest titles and descriptions, because that's also search.
Nice. Yeah. And just for people who don't know, so Yoast is a SEO plugin for WordPress. And it
Mhm.
basically, yeah, it's just like a little helper for you. Did I do
Yeah,
my SEO well or
it's
not?
so
So
good.
super easy. It tells you
Mhm.
exactly what to do. So thanks for bringing that up. That's a great tool.
It's super good. I've
Yeah.
always been able to rely on that and not have to think about it because I know it'll get me on the up and up.
Yeah. Are there other tools that you use to help create your content? So you mentioned AI, you've mentioned like Yoast, for example. Are there any other
Yeah.
tools that you use?
I love Grammarly to write in. It's just really good. I used to write on the WordPress blog all the time in the back
Mhm.
end, but sometimes you lose posts or formatting isn't right. And now there's blocks where you used to write in like an open document. So I usually write things in Grammarly, and then it's kind of checking grammar as I go and giving me suggestions and make sure that the language is like the right level that's great for people to read, which I like. And then it tells me like what tones things have, because I like to, I just like to look at all those things.
Mhm.
And even though I think that I don't have mistakes and stuff, Grammarly finds everything. So it's so much better. I'm always using Grammarly to go back on older posts and fix mistakes
Yeah.
because,
Are
I'm
you
not
using
perfect.
the free version or the paid version of
I use
Grammarly?
the paid version because
Okay, yeah, because
I
some of those
use,
things you mentioned are, I think, paid only.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's worth it if you're writing a lot of content.
nice. Now, how about distribution? So when you're posting to Pinterest or LinkedIn or Threads, are you always going into the tool and manually posting it, or are you using like a scheduling tool?
I use a couple different tools. So I use Canva to create like all my graphics and
Mhm.
things. And then I use Plan, the app PLANN for, I like to use that for Instagram because it gives you, their user, customer user experience is just really nice. It's nice in the app and nice on desktop. So if I'm creating a lot of content for the brand that I work for, I go into and I create all of it in there, and I do Instagram first, but you can also share to LinkedIn, Facebook. They don't have Threads now, so you just do, and Pinterest is in there, and that's a little separate setup. So I use that for if I'm scheduling out like a whole month of content. Knock on wood, if you can get really ahead. And then I like to use Smarter Queue, which is another scheduling tool. They just added Threads to their that's very new for scheduling. So, and then I have some things I schedule live in the apps. If I'm doing reels, I schedule them natively on Instagram. Pinterest, sometimes I upload things directly, but usually I use tools for a lot of things because I have some, like my Facebook page, for example. The people on there, they like a daily mantra that I do like every day in the morning, first thing, just like a little post, a little like quote kind of thing. And they really like that. And I like to schedule those out in advance. So I do those in Smarter Queue, and I kind of think about the whole month, what kind of like I write specific things for just to fit that time. So I do that in a batch process. I try to batch process stuff as much as I can. Um, and then I do live things too, but
Nice. Okay, nice. So it's interesting you have a mix of approaches. That's really interesting to me, rather than just I only do this. It kind of depends on what it is and what platform. So
yeah.
here's something. Here's a rumor I've heard on LinkedIn. Maybe you can address it. Maybe you can't. I've had people tell me that if you use a scheduler to post LinkedIn posts, LinkedIn will purposefully show your content to fewer people. And I don't know. Do you have to know if that's true, or have you
Mm.
experienced anything like that?
I do not know. I have to say, I don't know the answer to that
Okay.
100%, but you hear that about every tool, and then they come out. I mean, Facebook has come out and said, no, we don't do that. So if Facebook doesn't, I would think LinkedIn doesn't, but I don't know. I mean, when you share anything from LinkedIn, they make a link for it that's like a LinkedIn link, like a
Yeah.
specific link
Yeah.
shortener thing. So it's possible that they do, but I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm testing out some doing it doing scheduled posts versus live posting and seeing if there's any difference. And I guess I'll have to
yeah.
report back, to see what I find.
I haven't seen any difference in mine, but I mean, it's hard to say. There are people that are getting a lot of interaction on LinkedIn, and there was for a while, I would say 6 months to a year ago, there was this group of people who were really gamifying all of it and doing specific things. They were doing like back channel, uh, kind of commenting kind of stuff like that you would see on Instagram a lot, Instagram hubs where people would like put it in a group and then all the people would go comment. They weren't like, or it wasn't organic. They
Mm,
were gamifying it all with with other people. And LinkedIn put the kibosh on that. And they were like, we don't want to see this anymore. We don't want to see your vague posting. And they were like, don't post a selfie with just some, so they kind of put the kibosh on all of their gamifying stuff. So I think they're trying to reorganize it a little bit and figure it out again. But I personally haven't seen that, but also I wouldn't put it past any of the social channels to do that. I mean, right? But that
Right.
being said, LinkedIn is only saying, "Hey, can you post here like once a week?" They're like, "That's good. If you post once a week, it's good." Pinterest is the same. They're like, "We figure we if you're a really active creator on Pinterest if you post once a week." And a lot of people don't think about Pinterest as being a place where you are a creator because they're a little bit late on that content being trying to create a creator environment. That sounds weird, but it was correct. So they do want creators there. And if you are doing podcast clips or like any kind of content, they do want to see short form vertical video on Pinterest. So if you upload one a week to a board for, your podcast, and there are tons of people on Pinterest who want to be creators, it is a place where, you can find success.
I actually I wanted to talk with you about that in particular because you're fairly unique in talking about Pinterest because most of the business
Because I'm
people I
still
talk
obsessed
with,
with it.
well, I think you actually did you used to work for them, is that correct?
I worked with them
With
several
them.
times on different
Yeah.
things. I was in the Pinterest ambassador program, and right now I'm in the Pinterest creator group. So there's a group of Pinterest creators that, they have like meetings and they talk to us
Yeah.
about the best practices and things like that.
So I
So
noticed, I think you got about 50,000 Pinterest followers,
I do.
which is amazing. So, I mean, it just sounds to me like you can get some good engagement on Pinterest, even if you're a
Mhm.
business.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, the thing about Pinterest is it's different than other places because it's evergreen content. Anything that you put there, you want it to be evergreen content,
Okay.
and it can show up over time for different things. So if you're being smart with your title and your description, and then even the text that's on your graphic, it can come up at different times of the year if different things are trending. So think about Pinterest as being like an evergreen place where things last a lot longer. And another great thing is that every single thing that you post to Pinterest can have a link to it. So if you post your short form video there, you can link that to your website or to your podcast, where everywhere else that you put your short form video, like on a reel or TikTok, that does not lead anywhere. So on Pinterest, people can click right from your video to wherever. So
Okay.
it's a huge, I don't know why more people aren't seeing that as a bonus, but it's there.
Yeah, because I think, like me personally, I think about Pinterest as being a place to go find information about floral arrangements or, knitting or what. Like, it doesn't immediately connect me. I can use this for my business. And
Yeah.
so thanks for bringing that up. And then
You can,
also
and
to
you can
specify,
create resources for people
yeah,
for your business too. Like some of the boards that I have are just resources, like how to use social media, or how sometimes it's me looking stuff up and I just save it and then I create, but I use that for my personal stuff too. Like I also have a fall board that's like pumpkin things and recipes and things like that. So think of it as a resource where you can like create collections of ideas to share with people. If you have so because it's all about being helpful and useful for our audiences, right?
yeah, for sure. And I'm actually glad you mentioned too the focus on that evergreen content because I wouldn't have known to do that.
Mhm.
So that's a great tip.
Yeah, like timely things like I'm doing a live stream series right now. So it's once a week and I posted it because I know there'll be a replay of it, but if there wasn't, it wouldn't really do that much there. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's not like you can post it today and people are going to see it tomorrow and be like, "Oh, I should probably run and go see that." Some people might, but for the most part it's more evergreen content.
Okay. So it's more like a slow burn kind of thing. Like you're building this
Totally.
presence over time. Nice.
Right.
Okay. Well,
But
yeah.
where else can you do that?
Yeah.
Everything else disappears, right? Every other platform is gone by the end of the day.
Yeah, no, that's a great you're selling me on Pinterest. Thank you. I hadn't even considered it.
If I can convert people one at a time, I'm happy with that.
Perfect. I think my wife is on it for other things. I'll have to talk with her and
Yeah.
see what she says. So let's switch a little bit because I want to get to know you just a little bit more with the few minutes we have left. So when you're not working, and I know because we're business owners, that may be a bit of a fuzzy proposition, but let's assume there's times when you don't work. What do you
Mhm.
like to do? What's your favorite thing to do when you're not working?
Read. I love reading so much. Sometimes I'm just like, why do I have to work today? I want to read. I'm obsessed with books. I love
Oh,
you
cool.
can't see. I have some down there. I have books everywhere. I have books everywhere. I love books. I love
Do you have a specific genre or favorite book?
Well, I love romance books. I
Okay.
used to read all business books all the time. And now I'm like, you know what? Our news cycle is such trash since 2020. Like it's just been bad news. So I am just like, no, I don't feel bad. I read romances and sometimes I read like historical fiction. I also
Mhm.
love. And occasionally I'll read a memoir. I've read some good memoirs this year. I try to branch out to different things, but it's a problem. That's the biggest problem with me being on social channels. I follow so many authors. I swear I buy probably more than one book a week, probably. And I also have huge to be read piles. So I
Yeah.
don't
Hey,
need the
don't we
books, but
all?
I'm like,
Don't we all?
yeah. Have you ever used Pango?
Pango. I've never heard of Pango.
Pango Books is an app where you can get used books. It's like a
Oh,
little
cool.
used book app, and everything is, you're just buying directly from someone else. But it's because I read so many books and I'm a sort of fast reader too. I just feel better about like secondhand books. I buy new books too, but I buy people's book launch books all the time. But also, I like secondhand books too.
Nice. I'm gonna check that out too. So I'm I'm actually an editor and a writer myself, so you can imagine I read all the time, and my wife reads all the time. She actually blows me out of the water. But sometimes after reading for 6 or 8 hours for my job, I don't want to read another 2 hours at night.
Right,
Uh, but
right. That's fair.
Pango, okay, yeah, I'm gonna check that out.
It's fair. You can
So
only read so much. Your brain kind of gets
yeah,
overloaded, but
yeah, like my eyes physically hurt sometimes. I can't do it.
and I don't like audiobooks. Do you?
It depends on the book. And when I used to have a job where I had to commute to work, that was a great way to pass the time, but it kind of depends
Mhm.
on the book for me.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
That is okay. I am just so happy to hear that you're a fellow reader. That makes my heart happy. Thank
I'm
you.
obsessed with reading.
So, last personal question. You have a wealth of history and experiences. So, what is one piece of wisdom or a lesson you've learned? And it could be work related, could be personal related, that you could share with our audience.
It's okay to say no. If your schedule is full, you can say no. And if it's the right opportunity, it'll come up again. I think, especially for content creators, when you're new, it's hard to say no to things sometimes. And a lot of times when you're new, you get offered things that aren't paid opportunities, but it still takes your time and energy. And at some point, you have to say no to the free things. Sometimes you need to do some free things to build up how to do, like, build up your work practices and build up your platform and all of that kind of thing. But at some point, you need to start getting paid. And if people start accepting your price right off the bat, then you got to raise your prices. So don't be afraid to raise your
Yes.
prices and
Yes.
say no if it's an opportunity that's not right. I mean, one opportunity was offered, and it was probably like in the middle from when I started to now. So I'd already been doing things where I made quite a bit of money, but it was from a big, huge brand, and basically they were offering to pay me in gum.
In gum.
And I was like,
Okay.
I really appreciate your product offer, but 98% sure I can buy my own gum.
Yeah. Right.
So it's a ridiculous example, but it's just, how it is. And also for content creators, make sure that you set up a LinkedIn profile, even if you think you're not going to be looking for a job. That's fine. But a lot of places, a lot of like agencies they look at your LinkedIn to see what you've been doing. So they like to see your history and what brands you've worked with and things. So set it up like a business card and have it current with your photo and links where people can contact you and things like that.
Agreed. And I appreciate the saying no because I agree. No, I have to ask you, have you ever heard of the no sevens rule?
No.
So this is the rule I use to help me say no. If for any opportunity, what you do is you rate it on a scale from 1 to 10. 1 being I would rather subject myself to Chinese water torture than do this thing. 10 is this is the greatest idea ever and I can't not say yes. But the
Yeah.
trick is you can't use 7. 7 is off limits.
Mm.
So then anything 6 and below, that's a no. 8 and
Hmm.
above, that's a yes. So I've
Yeah.
used that to kind of help me gauge like how interested am I in this, how good of this is this, and that's helped me a ton.
Yeah, you could just create your own little matrix. Is the money good
Yeah.
enough? Do I want to
Hmm.
sometimes do you want to travel there? Like if it's a travel thing, like maybe there's not a lot of money, but Maybe you get to go to the Dominican Republic. That one speaking
Yeah.
thing that I had was like, it was a great location. I was like, well, I haven't been there. So, but when you start speaking, that's a thing where, they try to get people to come and speak for free. They're not paying your travel. They're not paying for anything. So then you would literally be paying to go do it. Like, why would they think
Yeah.
people would
Why
want
would
to
you
do
do
that?
that?
Because
I don't
people,
want to do that.
because people will do that because they want to be a
Uh,
speaker. They think that they'll make the big bucks eventually, but it's kind of a racket when they get the lower level people to do it for free. And like I said, you're literally paying. It's not only free, you're paying for your travel, so it costs you money.
yeah.
It's hard to
Yeah.
justify that when you look at that and as a business and you have a lot of stuff to do. You need to be doing things that are paying you money. That's not going to pay you money unless you could book clients there, and those would be paying clients if it aligns that way. There are some people who speak, they don't get paid, but they don't care because they will get clients and business from it. So that can be, if it's worth it to you.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd have to be really sure there's lots of potential clients, but yeah, totally. If that works. So Peg, where can people learn more about you?
On my website, pegfitzpatrick.com, I have a pretty good website. I've got a lot of resources there. I've got a lot of free resources, and also you can learn more about my book there.
Awesome. And Peg is downplaying her website. It is amazing. I went there, I looked at it. There's all kinds of free stuff that you can download, all kinds of wonderful content. You can buy her book. So please check it out, pegfitzgerald.com. Peg,
Fitz,
thank you so
it's
much.
Fitzpatrick.
Oh gosh, darn it. Pegfitzpatrick.com. I knew I was going to make that mistake and I sure
That's
did.
okay. A
So
lot of people do.
I'm sure, yeah. Pegfitzpatrick.com. Thank you for correcting me. Thank you for being on the podcast today, Peg.
Thank
And
you.
yes, and if you, our listener, enjoyed our discussion today, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And with that, have a great day, and we'll see you next time on the Content Creators Unite podcast.